Hey guys, and welcome to another analysis video. On the agenda tonight we have a blitz game between two young Russian players from the Russian Team Championship 2024, which is being played these days in Moscow, with the white pieces Alexandra Triapishko, International Master, young, 2473, with the black pieces, and with the white pieces, Grandmaster Vladimir Zakhartsov, both of them representing Formula Shakhmat from Moscow and Gdu Mogdovsko, also from Moscow. So these blitz games normally don't last, normally go over the 25 move mark, which is the limit for our miniature games, because normally no one resigns in blitz games before 25 moves unless you're completely busted, which is what we're going to see in this game. We're going to see an idea played by black Triapishko in the Bogo-Indian defense. So if you're a Bogo-Indian player, pay attention. But in general, any of you who play Queen's Gambit, Bogo-India, Ragozin, even some Dutch variations, Dutch defenses, this game will be of interest for you guys, because you'll see how black can develop a very strong attack on the king side. I think it's quite instructive. So let's go with the game. So we have d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, bishop to b4, check. The Bogo-Indian defense is very similar to the Nimzo-Indian. In fact, if white plays knight to c3, we do have a Nimzo-Indian on the board. Now the thing is, most players against the Bogo-Indian decide to play bishop to d2 to exchange bishops. Here we can exchange, we can play queen to e7 protecting the bishop, even a5 is quite an interesting move. But in the game, Zakhartsov played knight to b d2. Now this is an ambitious move, because the idea behind this move is to play a3 later on, possibly even in the next move, and force black to retreat and therefore lose the control of the center, or exchange the knights, in which case white achieves the two bishops. And this is an ambitious idea, a very ambitious idea by white. The problem with this idea is that in some situations the knight on d2 is not so well placed, because it doesn't really do much for the development of white's pieces. It actually blocks the bishop on c1. So most players here go b6, and the most popular line, I've played it myself with white and with black, is to go a3. Now for example, bishop takes, queen takes is very interesting, and now some players will develop their bishop on b2. And this type of position is considered to be slightly better for white, but black is very solid, sometimes inserts the knight on e4 and goes with f5, like a Dutch sort of game. I think this is a quite interesting position for both sides. Zakhartsov decided to play e3. Now, when white doesn't attack the bishop, you have to be a bit careful with black, because bishop to b7, bishop to d3, castle, castle. Now, if black is not careful, I have seen sometimes this knight dropping back to b1 or to b3, playing c5 and trapping the bishop on b4. So you have to be slightly careful with black if white doesn't play a3. Now, of course, Triapishko knows this and goes for d5, which is a very sensible move, occupying the center, and he has many squares to drop back to if need be. Zakhartsov plays a3. I personally would have played bishop to e7 here and highlight the bad position of the knight on d2. It should be on c3. But Triapishko plays, in my opinion, mistakenly, bishop takes d2, bishop takes d2 and a5. But we must remember this is a blitz game. So it's not so important to do the best moves, but you really need a position that you're comfortable with, because you're going to play very fast Your opponent won't have time to take advantage of the nuances, but you need to be able to put the pieces on the squares where you know they have to go to. Of course, white has the two bishops, but black is solid, and with the a5 actually threatens moves such as a4, blocking these two pawns with the pawn. That's why I would suggest b3 here. b3, queen c2, rook fe1, maybe at some point e4, maybe bishop c3, knight to d2 and e4. Different moves we can do to open up the position. Zakhartsov played c takes d5. I don't actually like this move much, although the computer does say it's okay. The problem with this move is that now the knight can go to e4, backed up by a rook on e8. And also, pay attention that the three pawns on the king side haven't been moved yet. You might think that that's not so important, but you'll see. b4, knight to e4, b5. It's a good positional move. Now there is clearly a weakness that has to be protected on c7, knight to d7, a4, rook to e8, and bishop to c1. This is well played, slow, but well played by Zakhartsov. He's aiming to get his bishop on the long diagonal, take away these squares for black, and then put a huge amount of pressure along the c-file, hoping eventually to eat this pawn. Meanwhile, black will protect the pawn with the rook if need be, and taking advantage that he hasn't moved any of his kingside pawns, he can swing his rook on the third rank. This is a Luft in German. The rook swings on the third rank. This is one of the ideas for attacking, most important when you're playing it for attack with the kings on the same side of the board. You don't want to move your pawns because your king's behind, so you lift your rook and swing it over on the third rank. Generally it's the kingside rook, but sometimes the queenside rook can also swing over. All depends on the position. Now, I think that bishop to b2, rook to c1, and rook to c2 with the idea queen a1, a3 is good for white. Keeping the knight on f3, because the most important piece to protect your king side is the knight on f3. However, Zakhartsov mistakenly, in my opinion, plays knight to d2, trying to either exchange off the knight or push it back with the pawn to f3. And of course, black quickly plays rook to h6, and against f3 brings the queen to the attack. Now things are getting very dangerous for white here. He's still okay, but he has to play carefully now. Now the only move for white here was to play h3. He can't capture the knight, which is what he did in the game, and we'll see that that was bad. After h3, I think that black would have played knight to g5, threatening a devastating sacrifice. And here again, the only move is bishop to f5. Now, I'm sure that Zakhartsov saw this idea, but thought that maybe black, even with all these pieces on the king side and the bishop coming in, could still attack strongly on the king side. Either that, or he thought that he could capture the knight and still finish okay. But this is wishful thinking. Queen takes pawn, rook to f6. Now, of course, if we try to hide, then black will give us a couple of checks, snap off the g2 pawn, and snap off the pawn on e4. Already with 3 pawns for the piece, plus the attack, we're doing very well. But as well, there is a sequence of checks which allow us to play bishop to c8 with the threat knight to e5 and bishop to g4. I've played around this position with the computer, and white has no way of saving this position. So a big mistake by Zakhartsov to capture the knight. Here he opted for knight to f3, d takes e4, already recovering the piece, and rook to h1. I don't believe this is the reason he played pawn takes knight, because black could just play queen to d6 here, get the piece back, and things are okay. Maybe he thought he might have some attack on the king side, but I doubt it. I think it was an oversight. But here black has an even stronger move. Instead of retreating with the queen, he played rook takes f3 check, taking advantage of the pin of the queen. And when white played queen takes, now he just captured the rook on h1. And against bishop takes e4, black has queen to h4 check with a double attack, winning a piece. White tried queen g3. Here black captured the piece, and d5 was the idea to play bishop to b2 with an attack on the queen. But after knight f6, Zakhartsov had to resign. So quite a sharp game, but it does show us the dangers of moving your pieces away from the king side and how a fast and quick attack can destroy your position. Especially interesting, the rook luft by the third rank, which I think is a idea that all club players should have in their attacking middle game repertoire. I hope you enjoyed the game. I'm currently on vacation, although these videos were recorded before I left, and more or less when you see this, I'm probably around Athens or maybe Croatia Split. So if you want to see how I'm doing, you can pop over to my Instagram account and I'll leave some photos in the stories there. I'm going with a group of friends, all chess friends. We're playing a chess tournament in the boat, in the cruise ship. So I'll leave some photos there and keep you informed of the travels and of the chess tournament going on in the cruise ship. Maybe some of you guys might want to try this out next year. So hop over to my Instagram account and you'll find me there. Meanwhile, as always, enjoy, have fun, and learn a lot of chess.